Hi, my name is Lauren Spurlock, and I'm going to be presenting to you today on the school improvement plan that we have here at Yuma High School. This is part of a course I'm taking at American College of Education. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a school improvement team that I put together, and the goal of that team was to collaborate on ideas to improve our school in areas that were deemed appropriate based on data that I pulled. The people that were part of this team were the assistant principal, who basically, I guess I could read these out loud to you, but very briefly to go over it, we had an assistant principal on staff, basically working more with school policy. We had an art teacher. The reason for that is that we have a program here at Yuma High School called the Mastery of the Arts program, and that weighed pretty heavily in on the data. So we did bring in the art teacher for that. We had a mathematics department chair. That person was very helpful when it came to analyzing data for this project. And then I also invited the student services coordinator. She oversees the social worker that works here on campus, as well as this counseling department, which is very closely related to enrollment, attendance, and even standardized test scores and things like that. So that was a very key piece of the team. And then obviously myself. Our vision for improvement had basically four components. We had a data driven process. Basically, we were going to get together, analyze data that was pulled, and find out where there are gaps and how we could address those gaps in a realistic way. We wanted to be sure that we were inclusive in the way that we're doing this and making sure that we're really thinking through solutions that cater to exactly who is in need of extra support and to be inclusive in our process. We wanted to make sure that we had cultural relevance in our decision making, mainly because we live in a border town. We connect to Mexico and also California, even though we're in the state of Arizona, and we are a pretty low income town. And so the school that I teach at and the program that I work for services the entire school district. We are 100% free and reduced lunch, and there are a lot of cultural aspects that factor into our students' performance. And so we wanted to make sure that some of those elements were part of our decision making. Many ELL students, which is what ultimately, as we watch this presentation, is what we chose to pursue. And a lot of the relevance of that is just that we have a pretty dominantly Spanish speaking population here in Yuma. And so we kept that cultural aspect in mind as we considered what we were looking at. Lastly, knowing that this one project and this one focus was not going to be a be all end all, but that we were looking for ways to continually monitor and assess what's going on, and knowing that those things will year to year need to be revised. And so just knowing that this isn't just living in a bubble, but it's actually a project that could be continued to be studied every year, and we expect to monitor and adjust. So the student achievement data that we pulled was from the 22 through 2024 school years. Again, this is Yuma High School, so we're a 1,500 student population. As I mentioned, we have a Title IV designation and 100% free and reduced lunch. We used state assessment data to assess the students. We do have a predominantly Hispanic population with minorities in the categories of white, African American, and Native American. English language learners are a large percentage of our student population. And so some of our findings were that well, we'll go into that in a moment. But basically, as you can see here, we have a pretty predominant Hispanic population. There are many ELA students. We also have some students with disabilities, but significant portion of students with that ELL. And so we looked mainly at ways to support that English language learning and the reading that's going on in classes and some of the dips that we saw in the data for that. We found that discipline and attendance had a pretty significant relationship to students that were also struggling in English language learning. I don't need to read each part of these slides, and so I am going to choose when and where to skip through. But here are some key numbers that relate to the discipline findings and the attendance findings, as well as results from the equity curriculum audit that we did. We focused on as I mentioned earlier, differentiated instruction, culturally responsive teaching, data-driven decisions, and an inclusive environment. The SMART goal that we came to, focusing on one specific need within our school, was to increase the ELL reading proficiency by 10%. The way that we're going to monitor, we'll actually base this data on a baseline, and at the end point is going to be through their standardized reading assessments. We're going to achieve this by really getting into the classrooms and using evidence-based literacy strategies and targeted student groups, so that within this school year we're able to focus on that small portion of students that are struggling with the ELL aspect of their education. And instead of maybe looking for a solution for all students, we're focusing in on students that are showing a significant disparity and focusing on raising those scores by 10%, just based on a baseline that we've already established in 2022 to 2024. And then we would follow up with that data and look for the percentage of improvement based on this coming school year's data at the end of the year. Again, standardized reading assessments would be the tool for that. So we looked at two different strategies. How do I want to say this? We looked at two different strategies as sample or ideas that we might pursue. And we kind of had conversations about these two things. We had others as well, but we narrowed it down to two strategies that we really liked as far as how to implement this. And then we really honed in on one of them to develop even further. So the first one was differentiated arts instruction. Because I do lead an art program at this school, I know how significant some of the courses impact the students and the way that art can influence and support students learning in other core subjects. And so we decided that maybe we could implement some summer planning, some PDs and things like that that would get teachers in the mind frame of tailoring lessons based on art lessons or art standardized, or I shouldn't say standardized, but standards-based grading projects that we do. We call it standards-based grading because we let the standard kind of drive the end goal of the project, but we let the students design them themselves. And there's some really neat things that come of that. And I think some targeted PD was a great idea. This is one that I brought up to the team, and they all seemed pretty excited about it, even though the arts part of it was really my wheelhouse. And so that was an idea that we kind of thought through. Another one was to really focus in on the cultural relevance and provide mentors. And so we could seek out community partners, maybe people that were brought up speaking Spanish or that have been significantly impacted by their English learning, and connect those mentors with students from our school in order to get some emotional guidance, maybe some social guidance, as far as navigating a world where you are using your second language to excel academically. And we have some models like that set up for here at Yuma High School. So it was an interesting conversation as to how maybe we could use some of that community and mentor support to support students in English language learning. I think that one was really novel. We came up with the following monitoring and adjusting plan. The strategy that we did focus in on was, again, helping English language learners and economically disadvantaged students to develop their vocabulary, their reading proficiency, and to show that on standardized testing at the end of the year that they've made improvement. Again, the SMART goal was to improve by 10%, and we gave some targeted strategies. If you dig into this plan a little deeper, we gave some targeted strategies that would go into specifically how we would implement some of these ideas. From this initial presentation, what I'd like you to take with you is that we are calling to action a few things. First, if you feel that you could participate in any way in conversations about this, maybe you have some strategies that align with the things that we're thinking about. Maybe you're involved in standardized testing in some way, or have a cultural background that could contribute, like maybe you'd choose to be a mentor or something. We have a lot of different roles that could be filled. This is definitely a team effort. So the first call to action would be to think about how could you collaborate with us as a team, and what things could you bring to the table that would help in this goal. The next would be to look out for some PD opportunities that are going to be coming this year, because again, with this strategy in mind, we do have that SMART goal, but what it really boils down to is working with teachers to develop a plan and to teach some skills that are going to show results on standardized tests at the end of the year for our ELLs. We're definitely monitoring by tracking progress using assessment tools. Data will drive a lot of our decisions and our rate of success. And so please work towards providing accurate data. Make sure that when we issue standardized tests that we are fair, make sure that we have students placed in settings that they test well, and do some strategies in the classroom that prepare us for our testing at the end of the year. And lastly, hopefully you feel passionate as you learn more about this process, and you would like to advocate for this goal and to help us on our team. It circles back to collaboration. So I do welcome you to take this short introduction to what we've been working on and think about where you fit into this. Think about whether you have time to give towards this effort. And if you do, please let me know. We'll be doing a follow-up meeting. If this were in a perfect, realistic scenario, I would probably follow up to this video at this point within the next few days or week, and to find out what teachers thought of this presentation, where their questions, what areas do they have questions, what was their understanding, and then what is their interest in going forward. So it's my pleasure to present this to you today. I realize I could probably talk a lot longer about this. I probably also could have kept it a little less wordy. So hopefully this satisfies the requirement this week. I wish you a great summer at this point. We're already coming up on spring break. So thank you for this course. It's been a pleasure learning about this, and goodbye.